Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important updates that took place during the previous night of the local time. The most important updates are coming from the United States of America and from Washington. According to information we have, Zelensky has cancelled his speech to the United States Senate scheduled for Tuesday at the last minute. This was reported by the leader of the Democratic majority in the United States Senate, Chuck Schumer. Earlier, it was reported that Zelensky was due to address United senators via video link today, asking them to approve financial aid to Ukraine. But as we understand, nothing is going to happen. The CNN television channel stated that long-term guarantees of multi-billion-dollar support for Kiev from the United States are no longer there due to the refusal of Congress to approve the allocation of funds. The White House reported that Biden is already privately trying to convince congressmen to accept the request for additional assistance to Ukraine. So this is a very difficult situation, but this is not so bad as is described. Obviously, the Ukrainians will not receive any help maybe in December, maybe in January, but obviously by February they're going to get something if the Ukrainians are able to survive by this date. Furthermore, United States is not the only country that supports Ukraine. There are a lot of countries in Europe who try to find a solution how to support Ukraine. For example, today we got another update that Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, invited Viktor Orban to Paris, presumably to reach a compromise on Budapest's position regarding the start of negotiations for Ukraine accession to European Union. We know that Hungary is probably the only country that doesn't support Ukraine, Hungary and Slovakia and probably Netherlands. But when talking about Hungary, there are also updates that according to the Russian sources, that the Russians and Russia is ready to negotiations with Ukraine, including on the territory of the Western country, including Hungary. So a lot of things, a lot of underground situation. The leaders of countries try to discuss what are they going to be next. But from the other side, we see that, for example, the Stoltenberg says that the NATO countries will continue to provide Ukraine assistance despite recent political changes in the Netherlands and the special position of Hungary and Slovakia. We know that something wrong or something interesting is happening, for example, in Finland as well. For example, the Finnish defense minister, Antti Hanaken, said that his country will continue producing artillery ammunition for Ukraine. So we see that there are like few camps in the world, let's say in the Western countries. Some of them support Ukraine, some of them are not going to support. But as I understand, if Ukrainians are able to survive during December, January and February, the most difficult period of time, the time of battle for Avdiivka and Bakhmut, then the Western countries will renew the support of Ukraine. So the next few months is going to be the most important ones. Now let's move to the situation on the ground. We have a lot of updates from Kherson direction. The Russians continue bombardments of Ukrainian positions in Krynki using all types of weapons they have. For example, on this video we can see the usage of Ulmur missile. This the type of missile that can be launched by the helicopters within a distance of 15 kilometers, and as a result of that strike, the Russians managed to destroy another Ukrainian position inside of the village, or inside of the ruins that left from the village. Furthermore, the Russians continue bombardment of the banks of the river using different types of weapon. On this video we see how the Russians were trying to bomb and to set on fire the main Ukrainian evacuation or entrance position. So this is the area that Ukrainians used to enter this territory or to evacuate. As a result of fires, you can see something was set on fire. Furthermore, today the Russians published the video of Iskander strike in Kherson itself. If you remember, yesterday we have already discussed and saw the footage of the results of that strike. The Ukrainians were using this building, this small mall or big mall, as the main ammo depot in this area. So the clashes continues. The Ukrainians continue sending more and more forces, and obviously they are not able to do this endless. Now we are moving to Avdiivka direction, and we have also a lot of updates from this territory. The Russians continue discovering and destroying the Ukrainian artillery systems with Lancet. So the story Avdiivka repeats the same story as we see in Krynki. This is new Russian pattern, new Russian behavior. When the Russian attacks, or when Ukrainian attacks, let's say in Kherson, the main thing that the Russians are trying to do since the beginning of this operation is establishing something like Lancet control over the Ukraine artillery positions. We discussed a lot of time this number of artillery systems that were destroying this square, and now the Russians are trying to make the same in Avdiivka. So when talking about Krynki, Kherson and Avdiivka, the Russians do have complete drone superiority, long range and middle range superiority, and the Ukrainians don't have possibilities to use artillery forces in full strength. When talking about Avdiivka itself, the clashes continue since Stepova, or I have changed the map once again. As I understand, the Stepova is not under Russian control, and it's very difficult to measure the control of this village. But obviously, when talking about some controllers, understand the Ukrainians, let's say, control the chances that Ukrainians control, let's say, better or bigger foothold is 70% and the Russians just 30. On this video, we see a tank duel between the Russian tank and the Ukrainian tank. This is Ukrainian tank who was moving on the edge positions of Stepova and the tank was attacking the Russian forces along the railways. So the main Russian positions are located along the railways. And as a result of those strikes, the Russian tank was damaged but wasn't destroyed. Then the Russian tank tried to evacuate because he has some problems with his equipment. He can't continue fighting because he was damaged as a result of tank attack. And the Ukrainians tried to destroy the tank with FPV drones, but the tank managed to survive. Anyway, no matter the situation, we see the concentration of focus. So obviously we can say that this territory is the main area of the clashes between two sides. Either the Russians and the Ukrainians can't have the complete superiority, and it's like 50-50 on this direction. We haven't received anything from the southern directions, and as I understand, I haven't been receiving anything for the previous few days. So that means that it's about the period of time of end of operational pause, and we need to expect the renewing of offensive operation from the Russian side from the south. When talking about Bakhmut, Artyomovsk, we also haven't received anything during the previous night. During the previous days, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the vicinity of Bogdanovka, so now they're trying to dig in deeper or prepare the next waves of attacks. Obviously, 2 or 3 days there are going to be some pause, and after that the Russians will continue their offensive operation. I don't expect any big piece of news from this territory. But when talking about the central part, the Russians continued the storming operation of Dachi, of this residential area, with FPV drones. So I expect some activity and some Russian progress in this area during the next day, because the clashes are here very heavy and the Russians are trying to force the Ukrainians to step back. So as a result of clashes during the next few days, I expect the establishing of complete control over this territory by the Russian side. Klishevka, no updates during the previous night. The sources are saying that the Russians launched another offensive operation in Seversk direction. The Russians are fighting in the vicinity of Razdolovka. There are very heavy clashes, very heavy storm operation. The Russians are pushing in direction of Verkhnyakamyanska, and the Russians are trying to force the Ukrainians to step back from Belogorovka. We haven't received even a single geolocated confirmation, just telegram messages and notes from the sources on the ground, but probably today we're going to receive more updates exactly from this territory of the Russian offensive operation. I'll remind you that currently there are very heavy clashes on Liman front line, and Seversk is a part of this front line, so there might be some clashes. Now we're moving to Kupinsk direction, and we got some updates and details regarding the strikes that took place during the previous days. If you remember, yesterday we have already discussed the fire at the Iskander strike against the Ukrainian positions in Barova. Today we got more details about that attack, and according to information we have, the total losses of Ukrainian forces were around 60 soldiers and 20 of them were killed, so 40 wounded and 20 were killed. And we got the first footage of the results of strikes in Kupinsk, in the local library that Ukrainians were using for the temporary position for their forces. And this is what's left from the library. As you can see, just doors and nothing more. Rest of the building was destroyed, so everything that behind, as you can see, was completely reduced to ruins. But we don't have the numbers of losses of the Ukrainian forces as a result of that strike. So today we're going to receive more updates, obviously, and today we're going to receive obviously more details regarding possible investments and finance of Ukraine for the winter and late and middle winter period of time. And that's it for this short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.